What's up, Tube? Welcome back to Guido's Chop Shop. Tonight I got the LK58 from Taidi Toys. Why don't I have a tidy patch? I should have like a tidy... Anyway, from Taidi Toys. This is also known as the FAL carbine, and it is almost the identical model that I got from Classic Army a little while back, which is going to be interesting because I'm kind of going to want to be comparing the two in my head. That's probably what I'm, despite the fact that I am doing a review on this in itself, I'm mentally going to be comparing it to the Classic Army because that's the one that I have already got and I know it quite well, and it's one of my favourite blasters to date, I think, so far. So let's open up this box and take a look inside. Yes, we're going to open the box up. Here we go. Alright, there is some literature from Taidi Toys telling you to stop and think. Some more literature from Queensland Police also telling you to stop and think. Stop and think. You should stop and think. For what it's worth, the campaign that Queensland do makes sense. It's a heck of a lot better than what's going on in some other states, and I don't like to get political because I'm not a political commentator by any means, but this works. This works for Queensland and it helps plenty of businesses. So other states, take note. That's all I can say. Take note, other states. We have a manual and what looks like a sight adjusting tool. I'm gonna guess that is. And then we have the blaster. Alright, I'm gonna get it out of the styrofoam. We got the magazine here, speed loader, and some gel balls. I've not actually used these gel balls, but I've been told that they are actually not too bad, so maybe I'll hydrate some of them and give them a crack. Alright, here it is. The magazine here. It is a metal outer magazine. Looks like I've already scuffed it just by putting it in once, but that's gonna happen just from the way the magazine works. What are you gonna do? It's gonna happen. But yeah, it's got a pretty nice magazine release there. It is metal tab there. We've got a bolt release on the other side. Got a metal receiver, metal upper. Looks like a nylon grip, nylon stock, and a nylon handguard. Metal barrel, metal sling loops. Got another sling loop down here. I'm gonna just flip this over and I'm gonna give you like a close-up treatment. Starting down from the muzzle brake. Got the iron sights here. Got some various little like gas block adjustments and things that don't actually do anything other than look cool. The nylon hand grip there, charging handle, Look at this pressed steel magazine, does look quite nice. Hardware, looks like real hardware. I think that actually unscrews. The rail on the top, the selector does have a nice click to it. It doesn't seem to want to flick straight past semi into auto if you put just a little too much force on it. Just go straight there. Then this release to does nothing actually. I always make a bit of a joke. That's supposed to release the upper, but it does nothing. And then back here to the stock, there's still a little bit of styrofoam on here. Pay no attention to that. Oh, it's stuck on there, good. There we go. And a nice solid sling loop at the back there. Nice details. Nice solid looking charging handle. There's a bolt release here on this side. It really slaps back when you release it. It doesn't seem to have enough travel. I feel like the classic Army one, I think it goes back further perhaps. Maybe I should get it out and have a look. Side by side. They are pretty close looking. Yeah, so the classic Army does travel back a little bit further, and it's noticeable. They've both got it pretty. Yeah, you can feel this. It feels a little short. It just feels a little bit short. I mean, this is short too, but this is really short. The classic Army has a more textured feel to it on the handguard, and this one seems a bit smoother. Same with the grip, the pistol grip. Seems like it's just a bit more textured on the classic Army. Some of these seem to have a different finish on the classic Army. The classic Army's charging handle seems a little bit loose, whereas the Taidi is nice and tight. Very positive feel. Still a positive feel on that return spring, but a little bit loose. Just rattles around a little bit on the classic Army. Magazines, which I will have a look at now. Oh, they're different. That's a bummer, isn't it? So, the classic Army has two terminals there like that, whereas the Taidi has got two terminals at the back here. Yeah, right. I mean, it's a little bit of a shame because it'd be cool to be able to exchange mags between the two, but other than that, they are very similar looking and feeling blasters. I think the next thing we're going to do is load this up with some gels and test it out, see how it goes. So the mag door opens on top like that, relatively easy. The battery, I'm going to need to put a battery in it. I think it's recommended to run a 7-volt battery, so that's what I'll be running. And the battery just goes in the back here with a mini Tamiya connector there. Alright, so I'll just grab a battery and hook that up. And let's take this thing to the chrono. Alright. Just pop a battery in the back here. It does seem to have a reasonable amount of space in the back here to put a battery. Not huge, given that the size that the stock actually is. I would have thought that they'd give you a little bit more room, but there's enough. Sufficient battery storage space. Also gonna load up some gels. I don't know what these ones are. 7.0 to 7.3 is what I've got measured on them. So, well, there's a few of them on the floor now as well. Alright, so there's no priming function, but the ejection port does pop open when you pull back that slide. I'm going to set my chrono up. Alright, start with semi shot. So it's got quite a interesting sound to it. It's got like a metallic sound. Does that ejection port reciprocate? Ah, that's what it is. The ejection port reciprocates. So you're getting that reciprocating ejection port sound. That clanging. That clanging sound. Alright, let's get some full auto. We're looking around the 300 mark. Average of 303, max of 349. There's a couple of 320s in there. There's also some 290s. So, you know, fairly good power. 300, you potentially pushing the boundaries of field limits at some places. I'm just going to whack it back into semi again. Seems mostly around the 310 area when it's on semi, but it's when it goes into full auto that you see a few of the higher range hits. There you go. As soon as I heard that very metallic sounding shot firing, I knew that there was something clacking back and forth on this side, and let me show that to the camera for you. You can see this reciprocates, which is cool. It's a cool thing. Gives you that nice. It certainly gives it an interesting sound. That's for sure. Let's have a look inside. Let's see what the gearbox is. Well, yeah, what's inside here? What kind of gearbox we have, and we'll go from there. We'll start by removing the battery because, you know, safety third. Pop that one out. just so we're nice and safe. Alright, and I think if you have a dime or something, this works well to get these open. I don't know much about American money, but actually it's a quarter. Quarter works. I'm assuming that this is like the classic army. I'm just making that assumption. With the classic army, I just assume, like the classic army, that this unscrews and this also unscrews on this side. Something about assumption and something. Yeah, so those two unscrew. This looks very similar to the classic army in the way it takes down. So that pops out. Is there something else? Something else that happens here? I don't know, with this reciprocating bolt mechanism, if there's something else that needs to be undone in here before it'll come free. I know with the classic army you just basically undo that and that's it, pretty much tear down complete. But this seems like perhaps there's something else that I'm going to need to do. Seems like if you lock the bolt back, maybe. Alright. I see, okay. There is the mechanism here for the reciprocation. I like that word, hey, it's word of the week, reciprocation. So the mechanism that moves that line shot, yeah, the mechanism that moves that back and forth is here. It's mounted in the top of this upper receiver here. So it's got a little tongue which pops down into the back of the gearbox here. And so when you take this apart, you can't just slide it off forward, which is what you would expect, because that hangs up. So you've got to kind of lift it and forward. Alright, now the next interesting thing that I see here is this nozzle. The lack of rubber here is very interesting. I assume that it must have a rubber seal in the T-piece of the barrel here. Yeah, it must have. I'm going to take this T-piece apart. It's not often I do this, but I'm going to take the T-piece apart. I'll zoom right in and we'll have a close look here. Alright, looks like there's two Phillips head, probably number 2s to be honest. I got a number 1 in my hand. Probably should go for a number 2. Here. Always use the correct size tool. You know, one might fit in it and it might just work, but that doesn't. It's not good. If you've ever come across a screw where you try to turn the screw and the thing won't turn because the heads are all stripped out, it's because someone has used the wrong size screwdriver on it. Someone could be you. might have been the person before you. But yeah, always pays to use the right size. Now, 2 screws there undone. What's next? Is there another screw here, or is it just pop? Must just pop. Bear with me. Alright. So, this is interesting, because this is a rubber seal. Let's bring this on over. The T-piece sits in there. The rubber seal sits in here. And I guess that the nozzle, when extended, seals on that rubber while also pushing a gel through there. Let's get a gel. This obviously works quite well because it's doing 300 FPS. Oh, that's fun. Yep, so just enough to sit it there and to get a seal. And then that seals onto the end of the barrel. Yeah, righto. Just enough to seal and make a nice pop. Interesting, I've actually never seen a gel blaster do it this way. I think this is pretty common in the other hard polymer type setups, but I've never seen this exact setup in a gel blaster before, which I find interesting, because yeah, it's just yeah, well, I've never seen it before. It's interesting. Obviously, the easiest way to do this would be to do exactly this, so you don't have to worry about your rubber coming off your nozzle. But just about every other manufacturer in the past has done it the other way. So has JG found out something that we didn't know, or something? Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't seen one done that way. So that, I mean, obviously, like I said, it obviously works. How reliable it is, I guess, it's yet to be seen. We'll see how that all goes. While I'm here, I will measure this barrel up. We'll see what it measures. Alright. So looks like 7.4, 7.39, 7.4 ID barrel, which is it's not a bad size. It's interesting though, because of this rubber situation, this setup that it's got, the plastic has a little tab in there to keep the barrel from coming out, but there is nothing to stop the barrel from spinning. Alright, so the line there, and you can see there's nothing stopping this from free spinning around. I suppose you could glue it into the T-piece to stop that from free spinning. It obviously doesn't affect the air seal all that much because you've got that rubber inside there. But if you're planning on putting a hop up on this end of the barrel, you want your hop up to stay the right way up, so you don't want it just sort of spinning around mid-game. So having a floating barrel is not something I'm a huge fan of. I don't know. It's interesting because, as I said, like, I've never seen a blaster done this way. So if everyone's doing it the other way, why would you change? Why would you go to something different when you know and everyone else knows that what we've been doing works well? It's odd. Anyway, moving on. The mag terminals here, quite small, very close together. Although you shouldn't, I mean, as long as you're not ham-fisting it, you shouldn't have too many issues there. They're a bit pokey-outy. Again, like I said, so long as you're gentle, not slapping the mags in too hard, you should be okay. You just want to be careful not to snag them on something and bend them or break them. Alright, let's zoom out a bit and have a look inside this box. Alright, take the screw out of the bottom of this grip. Now, this is a V3 type gearbox, so you take that grip off. Everything just comes away, and I think, with the exception of maybe the battery wires through the stock, and the select fire switch. Okay, yes, so it's auto. If you flick it into auto, the whole box should just sort of come out relatively easily, and the wiring also should sort of slide out through the stock. Okay, wiggling and jiggling with the wires to get that out helps, but I found off camera I just removed these two screws, two Phillips head screws from the back here. I don't know if you can see that, it's not in focus. These two Phillips head screws, and this whole piece off the back comes out and makes it a whole heap easier to feed that wire in and out of the stock like that. Interestingly enough as well, this is the battery compartment, right? That's the battery compartment. Why? Why? Like, you just cut this off and the whole world is your oyster in here. You can fit all the batteries in this stock. There's no need for this. You don't even have to cut it off. You don't even have to cut it off. Look, there's two screws here. You just undo these two screws, and this battery compartment comes off. You don't have to worry about battery size. Again, just put that on. This whole thing full of battery. I don't even know what that's for. Doesn't even look like it's designed for this battery, to be honest. It looks like it's designed for a pack of like 18650s by 2 or something like that. That's what it looks like. But I wouldn't even put that back on. Why would you? You got so much space in here, so much room for activities. Alright, let's move on. Let's look at this gearbox. It is a V3 gearbox, aluminium, or sorry, an alloy. People always, well, not everyone, but some people get mad at me when I call it aluminium, because it's not really. It's alloy. It is an alloy. Alright, so we got an alloy box, motor cage, bearing down here and bushing up here. See that? Bearing here, bushing. I like that setup. I like the bearing bush setup. Because this one's obviously the only one that really needs to spin fast. These ones spin slower. The further you go, the slower they spin. It's got an aluminium alloy. It's got an alloy trigger and cable management. That's pretty cool. Kick the tripod. Cable management. I do like that it's got cable management. It's also interesting that it says gel specifically on this piece of cable management. So obviously the hard polymer one doesn't have or need that piece of cable management, so it probably doesn't have it. Yeah, so that's specifically just to keep your wires in on your gel blaster. Alright, let's see what's in here. We got a motor. It's a 480 short motor in a cage, which is what you expect in a V3. It's completely black, no markings on it. Alright, so it looks like it's a Torx T10 for all of these screws, except for that one, because of course it would make no sense to have them all the same size. So this one is actually Allen 2mm Allen on that little bit of cable management. And I guess if you're going to have a different size thread on anything, it would be the cable management, because it seems that that's the bit that's probably specific to gel, perhaps. I know the other one actually said gel on it. That one says gel. Yeah, but worth noting. 2mm Allen. Everything else, Torx. This is pretty cool. Just noticed here, there's actually a star washer thing that just flew out there. This here, that's actually an anti-vibration washer to stop these screws from vibrating their way loose. That's a cool thing to have. I've certainly seen aluminium gearboxes in the past where the screws have vibrated their way loose, particularly if you've got like a high RPM build. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to undo these screws. I'll probably just I'm going to take these two wires off the motor here, undo the screws for the everything, and then I'll cut back, because you don't want to watch me undoing screws, surely. I just got the two screws off here to get the motor cage off. And I noticed this pinion is completely dry. It is completely dry. It's a little bit concerning. There is next to no lubrication on. Well, there is zero lubrication on this pinion. I'll have to see what there is inside the box when we get further into it. But at this point, I can't see any sort of lubrication in there, which is bad news for your pinion gear if you run it like that for an extended period of time. Okay, so I've undone a few more of the screws. I've got the motor, taken these wires off the motor, got the motor and the motor cage free. This is a cool design on the motor cage. It splits that way. You got these two screws here which split the motor cage into two halves. Interestingly enough, there's two different screws. They're both Torx, but they go for a smaller size Torx on this. So there's a T10 there. It looks like a T8 on that one. I don't know why they'd opt for a different size screw head again. Fortunately, we don't actually need to get this out. The motor is quite happy to just sit in there, so we'll just set that aside. But I do want to talk to you about this top plate. It's a V3 thing, and you always have to get it off, and it is a bit of a pain. I find probably one of the easiest ways to do it is to just hold a flathead screwdriver there and then just tap it against the bench like that until you get enough that you can pull that off. Sure, there's probably easier ways of doing it. You could probably like clamp this in a vise and then use something to tap it off that way. But that doesn't work well for camera, so I do things the hard way, as always. All these wires, this is interesting as well. The wires come around from this side to that side. They also go to this mag terminal plate, which sits on the front here, which screws into both halves of the box. So we have to remove that mag terminal plate off the front in order to be able to separate the two halves of the box. Yes, so that's two Phillips head screws in the front here. Number one Phillips. Alright, so pop these out. Another one there. Two of them. Alright. So they should pop out, and then we should be able to access this plate. So it seems like it's like a two-piece plate or something, so the plate's kind of coming off, but the screw's not all the way out. Alright, so this gives us access to the terminal plate. This is worth looking at close up. I want to see I want you guys to see this close up. This is really interesting. Alright, I hope you can see this. I hope it's in focus. These are the mag terminal plates. You got your what I guess is the positive here and the negative here. Only guessing that from the colours of the wires. That seems legit though, because the red does go to the motor. So yeah, this is amazing. Alright, okay. So that clips in there, and that plastic section, this piece that screws down in there, is what holds it apart. And there is literally, I want to say like just slightly under 1 millimeter of gap between these surfaces that are actually live. This copper, if they were to touch each other, you would have a short and a bad day. That is amazing and somewhat disturbing. So you have to, if you are doing this, if you are taking this apart, you have to pay real close attention. You don't get these bad boys shorting together. I might actually do something, I'm going to modify that a little bit. Alright, so I've modified mine a little bit here. What I've done is I've just flattened off the sides of this negative terminal, because this one has current flowing through it for the motor. It comes from the switch block, so I didn't want to take any copper material away from here that would potentially make it a little bit more, I don't know, resistive, whereas this portion of the negative terminal is really only just to mount it. The actual current flows through this portion here, so there's not really any current flowing here, so it shouldn't have any effects on it whatsoever. Just buys me another 1/2 millimeter or something of space there, air gap, just, you know, just insurance, just so that when you're assembling it, if you get it slightly off, you don't mess it up. It's also worth noting there is another little tag in here, so when you pop this positive wire, there's a little tag there that pops out. You can see that. That comes from the switch, so when you're reassembling this, you have to make sure that tag pops underneath that, because that contact there onto that is actually what runs your motor. That's your motor terminal. So from the switch block, from your trigger switch block, the positive power comes through here. So yeah, you got to make sure that contact's in there, and make sure this doesn't contact in here, because that would be a short. All right, so as I said, I've just taken a slight file to it, just giving myself a little bit more clearance. And then now that I've done that, I can take those two off, and this plate, hopefully, yeah, and that whole plate can come off. And then now it's just a matter of getting these two screws off. Now I am here I am telling you that you don't want to watch me undo screws. I won't film this because it's boring. Undoing screws. Next minute, Guido undoes screws. Alright, one more remaining. Now it's worth mentioning, this has still got the spring inside this gearbox. It does not have a quick release on the back. It is a one piece. Yeah, you know what I mean. It's two halves, but one piece, two piece, whatevs. You get what I'm trying to say here. There's no quick release for the spring, so when you pop these two halves apart, you are gonna have to be aware that there's a spring inside there that's going to want to come out. Oh, there we go. We've just shot the trigger out, which is always what you don't want to do. Don't do what Donnie don't does. And there's the spring retainer. Whew. I really dislike that design. I mean, Gen 8's had a quick release rear. Why are we going backwards? Why are we even here? Anyway, let us continue. Remove this spring and this guide rod. And we will also remove this piston, which looks like it's nylon, which is another one of my pet peeves. It's fully nylon, and I actually was about to say I keep spares for this very reason. I've got like bulk of these replacement, but this one's got a special slot in it which is required for that blowback action. So the option for me is to either custom make this or stick with it. Well, I mean, while I've got all this standard stuff here, I might as well just rip it all out and have a crack at the old compression test. So compression isn't awesome. The nozzle doesn't seem to have an O-ring, but the compression doesn't seem to be any worse. Some grease in there. Compression doesn't seem to be any worse with or without the nozzle, so I'd say that the compression leak sounds like it's coming from the O-ring. I might chuck an O-ring in there just to see what happens. Why not? We're here. Alright, so I've got a green O-ring here. I'm just going to tear this one off. Chuck a green one on. I might just do that anyway because why not? Okay, that doesn't seem to have made any change. I'll tell you what the interesting thing is. It sounds like it's coming from the back of the piston. That's actually pretty interesting. That's worth investigating. I'll check that out. Why not? Alright, so interesting. Alright. So it sort of felt like, yeah, there we go. I felt like the air leak was leaking from the piston, not past the O-ring, but past the piston head somehow. And so I actually pulled this apart, pulled this head apart here, and there's a bearing in there as well. Seems like there was some fitment issue with the head and the piston, and I'm not even sure, like, I think this is a two-piece, yeah, it is, it's two pieces. So, this is funny. So there's two pieces here. The air was actually leaking past, not past the O-ring, but past the hole in the center of this, and down the center, and then down. The air was actually leaking out the bottom of the piston rather than. And I mean, I don't know if you can see this here. There's been some fitment issues in the factory here. This is mung. I feel like that needs to be cleaned up. It's like a bit of. So that needs to be cleaned up. This needs to be glued in there. And then this is I'm probably going to put this onto a different piston, or am I just going to, maybe I think I'll just leave it on the same one. Just for this blowback thing, or am I just going to have to custom make a whole new thing? How much time do I want to put into this? I think I might just go with the metal one. This one does seem pretty. It does seem pretty solid for as far as nylon goes. It seems fairly solid. I might just seal this up. Put it back on and roll with this until it strips out, and then when it strips out, I'll probably get a better piston and a better head and everything. I'll change the whole lot over. Just roll with this as it is for now, I guess, and I'll probably actually put some lube inside this gearbox as well. Yeah, I'll do that. I'm going to glue this, clean it up, glue it, put it in here, clean this up a bit as well. You can see where this hole is not really that circular, which is probably why this is all munged up in the first place. I'll just clean this all up and get going with it. Alright, so I glued this piston head together, and even with the standard O-ring on it, the compression, the seal is quite good. So I think it was just the cylinder head, the piston head that was causing the issue. And I mean, I could have got a mung one. There could have been a number in the batch, and I could have just got the one that was a bit, I got the Friday one. So it's probably not necessarily an indication of everything about this particular blaster. So take it as you will. I am going to get some grease among these gears. As I said, I'm probably just going to leave this nylon it doesn't seem to be showing any major signs of wear or anything there, so I might just leave it in there. It's really 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I will replace it later on if it needs it, and if it doesn't, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's kind of my motto. I like to think it is. I end up fixing it regardless anyway, don't I? Alright, now we're going to have to work on this trigger bar, this whole mechanism. It kind of flew apart when during the disassembly. So, alright, anyone who's ever done a V3 trigger before knows that they are a specialty reserved only for the pits of hell. So if throughout the editing of this video you see the trigger in and out a few times, that's why. Alright, so I like to get the spring in first, then get your trigger, hook it around the spring into that hole, if you can get it to stay there. Once you've sort of got it roughly in that place, you want to get this guy, he slides on to the back of the trigger there, and that little triangle sits behind the trolley. Now, the trigger and the little trolley pusher should pop down into little holes aligned for them in the gearbox, if the legend is true, and all the stars have aligned. There it is. Alright. Then you will get your working trigger. Now watch, as soon as I let go of this, it's going to pop straight out again. So yes, that's a royal pain in the butt to get that right. So yeah, keep an eye out for that one. Now there doesn't seem to be much in the way of grease in here, so I'm going to get some grease in there, just to give these gears the best hope of survival. Another good thing about putting a bit of grease around the place, it does help to hold your shims in. If you've got a bunch of shims in there that tend to want to fall off all the time, having a bit of grease in there actually it helps hold them in. So I like to just whack a dob of grease around the shims, just to give them half a chance of staying where they're supposed to be. It's likely that when you're pulling the gears in and out, they will get sort of dropped off. So having a bit of grease kind of helps them stick in place a bit. Now this is a molybdenum grease. I use molybdenum on anything that has metal gears. I feel like kind of should be a must. A lot of blasters come with like a silicone grease in there, which I think is probably great for the nylon gears, and it's probably, you know, it works alright for the metal gears as well, to be fair. But the molybdenum grease just tends to stick where you put it. And it's designed for metal and metal stuff, so chances are, give it a good. I'm going pretty overboard on this because this is dry. It's really dry. Like probably a little too dry. Yeah. So given that when you do start these gears spinning, they're probably going to flick a lot of grease off So try to get a bit of grease where I want there to be grease, and hopefully it stays there for the better part of its life. Can't get too much grease. Or can you? You probably can. Lots of grease is better than no grease. Put it that way. You just spent like 10 whole minutes listening to me talk about grease. Some quality content, Guido. Quality content. Alright. Hope the anti-reverse catch back in. And get this cylinder and taper plate and all the other related bits back in as well. Yeah, it's not gonna bide well with my trigger block, is it? Alright, I'm gonna try doing it the hard way as usual. Alright, spring in first. Helps to have the spring in first. Ah, come on, that was on. I feel like I should have won that one, but I lost. Alright. There's that trigger. And that part's not even the worst part. The worst part is I've got to get this spring in and then close the gearbox up without losing the trigger. Alright, so sorry for not using my transparent hands on this one. Spring goes in. Spring gets pushed in to the retainer. That does nothing. I don't even know why I did that. That literally achieved naught. Alright. So, holding down this. Sorry if I'm sort of in the camera while doing this. Alright, would you believe I ran out of memory on my SD card while putting that together. But what I was saying while the thing wasn't recording was that you got to put pressure on this cylinder and make sure this spring doesn't want to. It wants to try and pop. Put pressure on that while bringing the top half of the cover down, trying to make sure the anti-reverse catch stays in place, and lining up your two trigger poles there for that to get that back together. I'm sure as heck not going to pull it all apart again for a take two on that because it's a pain and I don't want to deal with it again. So we'll just leave it at that. I'm going to slide this plate back on the top here, and then I'll just put all these remaining screws back in. Okay, so I guess now I've got it all back together. Parting thoughts, closing thoughts. Quality of all this, quite nice. Quite nice. Like, doesn't feel too tinny or plasticky. The quality feels quite nice. Probably, let's talk about some of my gripes. Probably my only gripes. This battery thing. Why? What? I mean, yeah, I guess it stops the battery from rattling around in the stock, but just get a bigger battery, or I guess keep it in there. Whatever. If you do want to fit a bigger battery, you can just take that out. Fit a bigger battery. You got the whole big empty stock to fill with batteries. I know what I'd be doing. The barrel, being able to free spin, really sort of limits your hop-up options. Hop-up options are kind of limited anyway here with this particular muzzle, but I mean, if you did want to add a hop-up, it's going to become weird when you've got the barrel that can actually spin around within there. So you'd have to either sort out a hop-up that is fixed and can't spin with the barrel, or glue the barrel in, or do something to keep that together. The gearbox inside, they're very easy to get to. Very, very easy to get to. I love the design of these FALs for getting to the gearbox. It's literally like, take that out, undo that screw, done, you're there. That's awesome. However, the cable management, great. Cable management, I love the cable management on the gearbox. That's good. It's good to see some good cable management. The mag terminal junction box thing, I felt that was a little too fine, and I mean, I'm just getting finicky here. Like, this is not a big deal really, but like, I thought that was, like, you saw if you watched the video, I did modify that so that it would have less chance of arcing or shorting. That gearbox, I don't like the design of it. I love a V3 gearbox, but like, lack of quick spring change is a pain. That nylon piston was a bit, well, I mean, I don't know if it was just mine. Mine was leaky, and I'd like to be able to run an 11 volt. I'd like to change that to a metal rack. I probably should have while I was there, but then I'd lose the blowback, or I'd have to custom make the piston to fit the blowback. And yeah, I mean, I've at the moment, it's late and I didn't want to run the Dremel, but you know, it's not too hard to. I've done that for similar blasters in the past, and that's not an issue. But yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of that nylon. It had the one release tooth was metal, but basically the whole rack was nylon. Not too great if you wanted to run 11 volts. That'll probably strip out. The gearbox could probably do with some grease inside it. There didn't seem to be any grease in there at all. Don't know why that was. They're the things that I found could do with some improvement. I'm still not 100% certain about the nozzle style with the seal on the T-piece and just the plain aluminium nozzle. It works. I don't know why we would want to go that way when we've been using the rubber tipped nozzles for years now and they all work quite well. I don't know why we'd want to all of a sudden try and reinvent the wheel. Maybe JG knows something that we don't, or maybe they're just going maverick on it. I don't know. Constructive criticism anyway. By all means, I love Taidi Toys. I love the work that they're doing there. Great people, great company. This is a great blaster. Just some minor things that could probably be fixed up, I think. Other than that, yeah, big. I was actually going to do a comparison between this blaster and the Classic Army, and I think, all in all, I think they're very, 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 very close in the builds. Like the gearbox on the Classic Army was pretty much the same. It was the same annoying V3 without a quick release spring. However, it did have a different solution for the mag terminal block, so that wasn't as much of a pain on the Classic Army. But the finish was slightly different, like a more matte finish, but the quality of the nylon and the castings seemed about the same though. They both seemed very similar to me on at least on visual inspection. I like them both. What can I say? That's all from me. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, if you are interested in a patch, you can hit me up on the Facebook page Low Guido's Chapters if it hasn't been zucked yet. And if you're wanting to support my channel and you want to do that by buying me a coffee, you can do that in the Buy Me a Coffee link down below. If you want to support gel blasters in general, join the association, go do that. And shout outs to the people who have bought me coffee: Adam Hoy, Ben Gauchi, Hamish, Davin, More by Nature, Exploit. Cheers, all you guys, legends. Thanks for the coffees, and peace.